GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
This is Roxy from Vixen, and you're listening to All Bets Are Off with Robbie Vegas. Rev it up, Robbie.
What's up, rock soldiers? This is the Rockstar Robbie Vegas with another brand new episode of the All Bets Are Off podcast. Thank you once again for joining me. I truly appreciate you all. And we are sticking with this rock and roll that we got going on here because Mike Dupke is here today. That name probably sounds familiar to you rock and rollers because he's played with John Mellencamp. He's played with Hair of the Dog. He played with Wasp for about 9 years. And he's currently the drummer of Wednesday 13. I recently met Mike in Cleveland, actually, when I was hanging out with the Wednesday 13 boys, Jack and Troy. And, he's a really cool guy, big Kiss fan. We had an awesome conversation about how good Roxy Petrucci is from Vixen and Madam X, of course, who you just heard at the intro of this show. And I just really wanted to hear more of his story and get him on the show. So I'm really excited that he's here today. And I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I do. So before we get Mike on the line, please make sure to rate and subscribe to the show. Helps us with the algorithm, makes us pop up closer to the top of the list when you guys leave us 5-star ratings. Feel free to leave a review if you want, but really looking for those ratings. And follow us across the board on social media, and by across the board I mean Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ABAOPod. We are very interactive, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. So let's talk to Mike. Mike, thank you once again for being back on the All Bets Are Off podcast. And I say be back because we recorded this once before and Zoom completely shit the bed and we lost all but the first 5 minutes. So thank you for being here.
Yay! Yay, technology! Yay!
Well, I appreciate
Works
you.
Except when you need it to.
Exactly. And I appreciate you, your willingness to try this again.
Sure.
So I'm now going to ask you all the same questions that I asked you before. And I'm going to do my best to be shocked by your answers so that the fans get what I really wanted them to have.
Okay, no problem.
So
I'll see if I can say the same things.
Yeah, I wish I had something to compare it to. So
I did. There is a big difference, though, in that based on our last conversation, I wore something special for you today underneath my Wednesday swag. This is an actual Vinnie Vincent Invasion shirt, and this T-shirt is 35 years old. I got it when I was about 13, and miraculously, it still fits.
Wow!
But and on the back, it's got him with the gigantic hair holding the pink guitar, and it says World Tour 86-87.
Come on!
I bought it at a record shop. I didn't actually see the Invasion live.
Yeah.
But I was going through storage not long before the Wednesday tour, looking for like vintage shirts and stuff like that. And I'm like, does it still fit? And it does. It's like sideways, like the design is like over here now. But had to get it out, and maybe someday I'll put it on eBay so I can, get $20 for it.
Yeah, right. You probably get a hell of a lot more than that, man. Come on.
I might. Yeah, vintage shirts go for quite a bit. I was helping Blackie clean out one. He's got like storage lockers full of stuff on his property, and I was helping him clean out some stuff before. And I found he had a 1987 Iron Maiden Somewhere in Time baseball jersey, like authentic from that tour, because that was the tour that Wasp opened for. And I was like, do you think I could like have, is there anything I could put in this hand that would make that jersey go in this hand? And he's like, no, I don't want to get rid of that. I was like, because that thing was cool. It had, the cover on the front with all the dates on the back, and it's awesome.
Oh man, that's so cool. And I love buying vintage shirts like that too. So I'd be in the same boat as you. I'd be begging for it.
Yeah.
Well, and like we were saying last time is, I recently met you in Cleveland on the tour bus when I was hanging out with Jack and Troy, and found out that you were also a ginormous Kiss fan, like myself.
Yep.
So I'm going to start this one the way I ended the last one and see if your answer changes, because I remember what it was. So what's your favorite Kiss record?
And no, actually, the answer has not changed. In that, if I had to pick one, like from the entire catalog, it definitely would go with Alive. That's the second thing I ever heard from them, because I fell in love with them when I Was Made for Loving You came out, and I was a 4-year-old disco fan. I was one of the little kids that they said were, although I never got to see them back in the day, was one of the little kids that got attracted to not only the disco sound, but their kind of cartoonish image at the time. But then I checked out Alive from the local library, because you could do that back in the day, kids, and was blown away by that, hearing that gigantic crowd and, true rock and roll for the first time. But as far as their studio records are concerned, if we are eliminating live records, Rock and Roll Over just is my favorite Kiss record. I don't know. It just, after the amazing experimental stuff that they did on Destroyer, they went back to pure rock and roll, as you know, for Rock and Roll Over. And I just love that record. I love the rawness of it. I love Peter Criss's drum sound. And that whole thing. If I had to pick one, that might be it. But I love them all.
It might be one of their most iconic covers of an album. Like, you see that everywhere. It was on shirts and patches and stickers and lunchboxes, and they used that Rock and Roll Over cover, and still to this day use it in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Now,
Kiss was really good at that. Like, you recognize, and maybe it's exclusive to Kiss fans, but you see that cover and you immediately just, everything about the songs, and you can name every song on it, from Destroyer to Hotter Than Hell and Love Gun. But yeah, Rock and Roll Over for sure too. It's like that was them right as they were hitting that, or maintaining that icon status, right? Like they were starting to pack stadiums at that point. It was awesome.
Yeah. And, most Kiss fans, we will then divide it up into, well, this is my favorite makeup record, and now I have my favorite non-makeup record, and, all that stuff. Yeah. So I do the same thing. Like, if I had to pick, I'd say Dress to Kill, but then I'm like, but if you take the makeup off, it's Revenge.
Yeah, absolutely. You dissect it, by era, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Now, was Peter Criss the one that made you say, okay, I want to play the drums?
He wasn't the only one, and he wasn't the first one, but he definitely had a gigantic influence. I mean, that whole, 100,000 Years, the whole live break off of Alive, where, they had the banter with Paul Stanley in the audience while Peter's just doing, effectively just, that big drum solo that whole time. Mm-hmm. And loving that. Before that, my dad has always been a big jazz fan, and he had certain records that he played, including Dave Brubeck's "Time Out" record by the Dave Brubeck Quartet and drummer Joe Morello. I'm sure most people, at least if they can go, take 5, do that, and Joe Morello doing a drum solo on top of that, and playing licks, like it wasn't just, the 10 million notes as fast as you can go, but there were hooks in that. Same thing with the drum solo on Alive. It's like that cowbell part. It's like dun 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 dun. It's like any drummers can air drum that right away. And before that, of course, there Animal from the Muppet Show. Loved watching him go crazy and hearing. Kind of funny. I think I mentioned when we talked last time that the Muppet Studios got top-notch session guys to do their stuff. So a lot of Animal's drum tracks were done by Hal Blaine from the Wrecking Crew. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no wonder Animal sounded so good. It's like he had one of the absolute best session guys in the world at the time doing a lot of their drum tracks. So Yeah, so that kind of kicked it off. But yeah, Peter Criss and Eric Carr cemented it for me.
And Kiss was the first. They were the first band that got you into rock and roll in general, right?
I'd say that. Yeah. After my disco phase when I was 4, I think I mentioned before. In Christmas 1978, I got the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack and the Sesame Street Fever soundtrack on the same Christmas. So yeah, it was disco at the time, but then hearing what Kiss actually sounded like took me in a whole new direction that has yet to stop.
Yeah. So how do you get started actually playing drums? Walk us through that.
It's kind of funny. I didn't really start formally playing drums until I was about 13 years old. I was interested in drums and would beat on my toys or pots and pans or boxes or whatever else was around before that. But I had piano for about 5 years. My parents made me take piano lessons, so I had a little bit of musical background before I started playing. Was able to read music, and I played in front of people. But drums were the instrument where I found a home. Right, sat behind a kit, and my buddy Pete in grade school had a drum set, and I could just do it. It was, I sat down, he showed me, and I'm like, oh, like this? Boom. And, found out what a simple beat was that can get you through a song. And so I started taking lessons and got a drum set not too long after that. Grew up in a smaller town in Michigan where we had basements, so you could actually have a drum set, and our neighbors were not, too close that it would cause a disturbance the whole time. But I make the joke, too. It's like with piano, they had to force me to practice, and with drums, they had to force me to stop. They're like, it's 10 o'clock. Enough. Jeez.
I love that.
And that's another phase that has kept going to this day, too.
Of course.
I haven't looked back on that one either.
So I want to get back to your first big taste of the big time. You were super young, and you played with John Mellencamp. Can you, once again, for everybody who didn't hear it, because only I did, can you walk us through how that came about?
Sure. Yeah. After high school, I decided to go to Indiana University because they had and still have one of the best music schools in the country. And I got in, and I got incredibly lucky because after I got there, I found out that they were going to bring Kenny Aronoff onto their staff. Stuff. I'm going to have some more caffeine. Kenny, who had graduated from IU, it was a big thing that he was going to come back and join the faculty, and I got to be one of 2 freshmen that were assigned with him. The other being my roommate at the time, actually, too, Tom Deal. And so I got to study with Kenny for almost the entire time he was at IU. So I got to take a few years of lessons with him, and it was absolutely wonderful. He was still playing with Mellencamp at the time, and when Mellencamp put out Human Wheels record. Mm-hmm. That record ended up having a lot of percussion on it, and a lot of found percussion. They played trash cans and potato chip cans, and they made shakers and a whole bunch of stuff. And so when they started to do a couple of shows and performances for that, they needed someone to come in and play percussion. So Kenny suggested me, as Mellencamp supposedly had seen me with the basketball pep band at IU. And so I was 19 at the time and got to come aboard for an MTV special in Chicago and the Arsenio Hall show. And I got to be in one of his videos. I'm in the video for When Jesus Left Birmingham, and ended up doing some studio tracks with him too. When Mellencamp decided that he just wanted to, spontaneously do a record in 2 weeks, pure bare bones rock and roll record. Kenny was already booked. And so I think, John said, well, I'll show you, we'll get your student in here. So they rented me a car, and and I got a hold of some drums and was able to do some studio tracking. And actually they ended up keeping one of the songs that I did on the Dance Naked record, which was the follow-up to Human Wheels. So yeah, that was my first taste of anything that was considered big time.
Yeah, and I mean,
and it was great.
You were 19, you said?
Was 19. Yep, that was the fall of 1993. A lot of this happened. I think I told you last time too. It's when we all flew out to Los Angeles to do the Arsenio Hall show. The rest of the band was going to do something else that they didn't need the percussion on, so they ended up flying me home. And a stretch limo picked me up in the Indianapolis airport after the red eye at 5 in the morning, pulled into my dorm at IU at 6 a.m. and I remember asking the guy, I'm like, can you stay? Can we just wait this out? When, because people weren't going to class yet, but like 8 or 9 in the morning, they would have been able to see me. Get out of the stretch limo. I just got back from LA. But he's like, no, man, I'm sorry, I gotta go. Like, damn it.
But that's a huge taste for a 19-year-old to get all that, and then there's obviously no turning back from there. You're like, well, I'm making it, so that's that. And so where do you go from there?
Yeah.
What happens next that takes you on that road to say, like, I'm staying on this road? Like, where do you go from there?
The next move that I did after I was done at IU, I decided to give Nashville a try. I was too scared to move to New York or LA at the time, and Nashville was, at the time, it seemed like it was blowing up with the whole arena country thing with, like Garth Brooks and Shania Twain were now packing arenas, right, with pyro and turning country music on its ear by incorporating, making it a show, which it really, wasn't like that at the time until like these guys, Garth Brooks being admittedly a big Kiss fan too.
Yeah.
And the way it made it sound at the time, it made it sound like that, like you come to Nashville, you'll get a gig. And like they were just handing out gigs like peanuts at the airport. So I tried, but soon when I got down there, found out that the Nashville scene was a very closed, exclusive group of musicians, and there were like 3 session drummers that were recording like every record down there. So it didn't happen. But and I told you last time, I said, watch your feet, I'm going to name drop. I ended up meeting Fred Curry of Cinderella, who was living in Nashville at the time and had a studio. And we met him, we became friends, and he ended up bringing me aboard a couple of sessions for other bands that he was going to produce. And he was in 98, I believe it was, Cinderella went back out on the road, and one of the bands that they took with them was a young upcoming band called Hair of the Dog that had one record out and was starting to make a pretty big stink. And Hair of the Dog and Cinderella ended up getting along great. And when Hair of the Dog was looking for a new drummer, Fred recommended me to them. And so I ended up talking to them, auditioning, and getting in. And that's when that was not the fall of '99. Mm-hmm. So that's what brought me to Los Angeles.
And I know we touched on this too, as we had Ryan Cook on the show a few weeks back. So getting to hear about Hair of the Dog from both of you is really cool. And I did not plan that. It just like worked out that way.
Sure.
But you were in Hair of the Dog essentially from then on until you guys were no more, correct?
So. Yeah, we got a deal with Spitfire Records out of New York and ended up recording the Rise record, which was a lot of fun because actually we're recording it in Nashville, so I didn't make my full move to LA until after that record was done.
Okay,
and it was great, and those guys were great. Boot, John, and Ryan were all amazing, amazingly nice guys, and just a lot of fun. But unfortunately, as I'm sure was the same sob story with a lot of bands at the time, we got picked up, got it signed, but it just didn't, for one reason or another, just, didn't happen. That next rung up the famous ladder didn't really seem to go through. So at the kind of the beginning of 2002, the band ended up, kind of calling it quits. Mm. But, still in touch with those guys and Ryan for sure. And I'm hoping that, if you ended up talking to Ryan, you had a big Kiss geek out with him too, because he's, massive fan. And he got to, of course, playing with Gene in his band and Ace Frehley in his band. So, that's a dream come true for him, I'm sure.
We had a huge moment about that when he told me that it all started with Desmond Child. And I was like, what? Wait, hang on. But so from Hair of the Dog, though, your next big, thing would be Wasp, correct?
Almost. In between there was a step there. I got to actually play with a blues guy, a slide dobro player named Eric Sardinas, who actually had the same management that Hair of the Dog did.
Oh, okay.
Our manager was also handling. She handled Steve Vai, and she handled Lit. At the time, who were blowing up. They had My Own Worst Enemy, and the record A Place in the Sun was exploding all over the place.
Yeah.
And so we had seen Eric play a bunch of times. The Hair of the Dog guys always did, because he is amazing. And he was looking for a drummer right about the time that Hair of the Dog disbanded. So actually, it was kind of a nice shift over that. I already knew Eric, they already knew me, and I got to come aboard there, and that was my first taste of international touring. The very first show I ever played with Eric was actually in Germany.
Wow!
First time I'd ever been over there. Oh man, shaking in my boots, just scared out of my brain. But Eric toured all over the place. Eric toured the world. First time I got to go to Australia. First and so far only time I've been to Japan was with Eric as well. And I played with Eric for 3 years, from 2002 to 2004. And Wasp didn't come about until about 2006, when a mutual friend of mine in the band's Mark Zavon ended up putting me in touch with Wasp when they were looking for somebody, and that audition happened, and Blackie said at the time, like, I was the only drummer he hired on the spot. We did the audition, he's like, all right, you want to do this? And I'm like, yep. I can't remember if I said last time too, it was something he actually said, like, because I guess I did pretty well at the audition.
Yeah.
And he's like, so what do you got going on? And I'm like, well, not playing with any other major bands that had big obligations. And he was kind of like, what are you waiting for? And I was kind of like, this. Like this. I've been waiting for this.
Yeah.
So I was even working a delivery job at the time, and that was taking 4 days out of the week. And he's like, this is on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And he goes, Friday's going to have to be your last day of work. So I'm like, okay.
Nice.
All right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And we mentioned before, but I'll just bring it up again, is you were a fan of Wasp and just, 80s hair metal in general. So that had to be a big moment for you. Just, holy shit, I get to play with one of these bands that I grew up loving. And you end up in Wasp for what, 9 years?
9 years. Yeah. 2006 to 2015.
And I got to say that the Dominator album, which was the first one that you played on, is probably my favorite Wasp album. If I had to pick one. Yeah, I really love that record. And like, I don't know, like, I know they have like so many to choose from, but like, for whatever reason, that one stands out to me, just the way that it kicks in with Mercy. I'm just hooked after that. And I think that's so cool that I end up, meeting you on the bus and whatever, and you end up being the drummer on my favorite Wasp album. And it was just like a mind-blowing thing for me. It was like a full circle moment. And obviously with Wednesday 13 being one of my favorite bands and all that. But, when you left Wasp, you said that it was just like kind of your time. It wasn't like hard feelings or anything. You were just like, this kind of ran its course for you, right?
Yeah, there no bad blood or anything, and it was just a difference in like the plans that we were going to have. But no bad blood. Even though I stopped touring with them, Blackie even like brought me back to record a couple of extra tracks, including the Re-Idolized record when he re-recorded the Crimson Idol. Mm-hmm. He's like, you already know most of the parts. Do you want to do it? And I said, sure, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And that was another record that I got to share drum duties with the late great Frankie Benali, and that was a real honor because he and Stet Howland had done all the drum tracks on the original one.
Yeah.
So that was a big honor too.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And
you can hear me too. I don't know, and it's my horrible English accent impression. But if you listen to the Re-Idolized, when in the story when Jonathan is partying and his manager comes up and says, you've got all the friends money can buy. That's me.
Oh, really?
On the Re-Idolized, doing my horrible British accent impression, but I tried to just imitate the voice on the original one as best I could.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I don't remember if I told you this last time or not, but I remember you. I don't know if you were even on the bus when I said it, but when Jack told me who you were, him and Troy, I looked over at him and I go, and you guys don't do your Wasp cover live? And he was like, and he just kind of thought for a second, and he goes, shit, I didn't even think of that. We do a Wasp cover. I'm like, and you have him right here, and you're not doing it?
Yeah, I think that they could have, but it's, I fully admit, for as wonderful it was, to be in that band, I was also the fifth drummer. So, I don't think I have like the same ties that someone like, the guys who came before me, especially, Tony Richards, mm-hmm. Steve Riley or Frankie or Stet, not necessarily associated with it that way. But hey, if they ever want to do one, I'm game.
Right.
I know the material. So
well, I mean, since we're already talking about it, let's tell everybody how you found your way into playing with Wednesday 13.
Was actually with a Wasp cover. Yeah. One of the jam nights in LA, at least before COVID happened, they would have things like Ultimate Jam Night at the Whiskey or Soundcheck Live at the place called Lucky Strike, where just, kind of a who's who of LA rock and music people would get together, and you would have to know the song. You got assigned your song ahead of time. So it's like, all right, do you want to do Blind in Texas with Jerry Montano and Wednesday 13? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. I know the song. Didn't have to practice that one. So that was the first time I had met Wednesday. And years later, when Wednesday was looking for a drummer, he remembered me from the jam night, and we ended up talking. And I don't think I ever had like that kind of a conversation, like getting to know you kind of phone call, where I had that much in common with a potential employer as I did with Wednesday. He was just, rattling down the stuff that they'd watch on the bus. He goes, yeah, we pretty much just watch, 80s stuff, like, sitcoms like Silver Spoons and The Facts of Life, and, TV shows like Buck Rogers and Hunter. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm going to so fit in this band. Yeah, we had numerous 80s geek out nights, with trivia and name that 80s TV theme song when I was out with Wednesday. So it was ridiculous fun right off the bat. We got along great, and the whole band was like that too.
Oh yeah,
it was awesome.
Those guys are fantastic. I always love, like, every time they let me come and hang on the bus, I'm always like, all right, what 80s horror movie is going to be playing when I walk in? And I love it. And there's times where I just get sucked into watching the movie. Just kind of sitting there. I'm like, oh yeah, you guys are watching Creepshow? Yeah, I can definitely just hang out and watch this.
Yeah.
So
people who had not heard of Wednesday, like family members of mine, they're like, what kind of music is? I'm like, every song is an 80s horror movie put to music, right? It's all about death and blood and gore and corpses and monsters, but in like the most fun way possible, right?
Yeah,
in the best way you can imagine.
Yeah, 100%.
Did I just spit on my camera? I think I did. It's all fun. I'm like,
yeah.
Give me the Windex.
I'll make sure I clip that out and put that out there somewhere.
Yeah.
I got to say, though, and I told you this before, but I want my listeners to hear it, is it shows that you fit in with them really well when you see the performance. Now, I've seen Wednesday 20 times. I've opened up for Wednesday a couple times, and you just have, like, I'm watching you play with them, and everything just flows, and everything just looks great, and your drum, your set looked awesome with the blood. Like, oh my God. Like, I was really just like, this is their fucking guy. Like, that's the first thing I thought of immediately, because it just, everything just fits so well. And that show, specifically in Cleveland, was just out of this world. You guys sounded fantastic. Blown away. That
was a fun show. Mm-hmm. And with the drums, I think it sort of, when I came aboard, I was like, kind of like a potential boss or, whatever band or artist I'm going to work with. I'm like, all right, what would you like? Big kit, small kit. And when I showed him the drum menu that I kind of had, I go, I had this I've got piano black, or I've got this red fade, or I've got this blood drip wrap that I could actually put back on. And because I had used that with Wasp on the Crimson Idol tour, like 2008, 2010. And he's like, please can we do the blood drip, please? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. So put that back on, and yeah, it ended up fitting perfectly with the band. And
you, something about, I remember something about you saying that you started with them, something tied you with Ace Von Johnson?
Yeah, Ace might have been part of that the Blind in Texas jam night performance as well. I had met Ace when working with Jerry Montano. He introduced me to Jerry. Or no, excuse me, I had known Jerry, and when Jerry was going to record some solo material, Ace was playing guitar. That's right, yes. It was the first time I had met Ace. Mm-hmm. And it was Ace that actually more recently put me in touch with Wednesday. And it's like, hey, are you interested in working with Wednesday 13 at all? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, you need ask. Yeah. Being a massive Slipknot fan and big, Joey Jordison being a big influence on me. I'm like, yes, absolutely. some big shoes to fill. Although maybe not literally, because Joey was actually smaller. He's shorter than I was, which was very inspiring to do. I'm like, okay, if even shorter guy than I am, can play those drum parts. It's like there's hope for me.
Yeah, I mean, Joey was powerful for sure. And so you were already
player. Yeah.
You jumped into Wednesday 13 as a fan of his music already then.
Sure. I wasn't. I mean, I had heard, definitely had checked out the Murder Dolls before. I admittedly had not heard a lot of Wednesday's solo material. Mm-hmm. But when he, I came aboard and he sent me the records, and it just, it was one of those Oprah aha moments. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. Because it was, it's like, well, with as horror oriented as all of the band is, it's like the music is just straight up, kind of punk, metal, rock and roll.
Yes.
And so, definitely felt at home, being a big horror geek myself.
Right.
And stuff off the new record, off of Horror Fire, mixed in with stuff from, as I'm sure you saw in the show, it's like it encapsulated the entire history for Wednesday, from Murder Dolls all the way up to the present. So, a lot of ground to cover and a lot of fun.
Do you have a favorite song that you like to perform with those guys?
Ooh, I don't know. It's like the whole set was fun. Let's see. I Want You Dead was always a lot of fun, just because that's just one of the more high energy tunes. And I Walk with a Zombie and Grave Robin USA. I think the kind of faster, more urgent, punky style tunes were a lot of fun. Especially Grave Robin USA, because that song is such a juggernaut. It's just it's an armored tank just pushing through.
Yeah.
And so those but. I don't know if I, just like Kiss albums, I think from night to night, I'll have certain songs and I'm like, yeah, man, this is just awesome. Yeah. The whole set was like that.
That's great. So I got two more things for you before we wrap this up and get you out of here for your second first time. So what do you got coming up? What's next for you, with either just you or you in the band? When I say the band, obviously I mean Wednesday.
The next big thing that we know for Wednesday is going to be I think it's called the Slam Glam Fest, which is going to be in Australia. That is going to be at the end of January. It's a little kind of festival with some 80s oriented bands. Faster Pussycat, Pretty Boy Floyd, and Tough are all going to be a part of that. But that will be, I can't remember, in the January 20s something. I can't remember the exact dates. But that should be an absolute blast. Tickets are already on sale for that one. And personally, I'm just going to be holding on in LA until that. I've got some sessions and some videos that I'll be shooting of my own and with other artists. And I also teach. We'll go back to doing lessons in person and using Zoom. Actually, I've been able to do Zoom lessons internationally. In fact, one of my students is this kid, this whippersnapper from Australia who had been a big Wasp fan. And I'm hoping to actually meet him in person when we go down there in January.
Oh, that's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of fun.
Very last thing I want you to do is to just plug your social media, let everybody know where they can keep up with you, what you're doing, what's going on with Wednesday, any of that stuff. Sure.
Wednesday is all over. Wednesday is not hard to find on social media for sure. I think official Wednesday 13.com. My website is MikeDupke.com. You can get me on Twitter and Instagram on Mike Dupke Drums. And if you have something that you'd like to see, contact me, write me, let me know.
All right, very cool, man. Well, thank you again for being here for your first time. And
second first time, I like that. Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. And I'd like to do something in the future where we do just like a Kiss episode, and I'd like to have both you and Troy on, because I know he's also a huge Kiss geek. And
sure.
We'll figure out we'll try and break it down into, we'll make it even harder. We'll do like our favorite Kiss songs or something.
Ooh, really break it. Favorite Gene songs, favorite first song off the record. Yeah, there's a million categories that you could break it down into.
And we're gonna have to do a subcategory like that too, or else we'll sit here for 4 hours and we'll go, hang on. Let me change this to.
Oh yeah, you could do Ace Frehley solos. You could do Bruce Kulick solos. You could do Eric Carr drum tracks. Oh yeah. The wheels are turning.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Mr. Burns hands.
you're giving me all kinds of ideas here. You might just be a regular here. You're going to be like, whenever I do like certain horror movie things, I bring on Ace Von Johnson. Now when I do Kiss things, I'm going to bring you on.
Sure. Totally on board. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you again.
I geek out with the best of them.
Me too. Well, you enjoy the rest of your day, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
All right, rockers, once again, Mike Dupke. I gotta say, I am super thrilled that he agreed to do this one more time. I meant to bring this interview to you guys last week, but as you heard me allude to, there was problems with Zoom. They're still kind of giving me problems. Thankfully, I was recording on a little side recorder too, not just through Zoom this time, which it did fail again. So just glad that I did that. But glad that Mike was here, and we will have him on again. And if you get a chance to go see Wednesday 13, please check him out. We've had Troy on the show, now Mike's been on the show, and we're going to have them both back. So follow them all on social media. Follow ABAO Pod on social media. Follow Robbie_Vegas_official on social media. And we will catch you guys next week on the All Bets Are Off podcast.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.